Hi kids, Mr. Joseph's here. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the Bohr model of the atom. This model shows where the electrons are located in an atom as if they were rings around the nucleus. So first let's take a look at a vocabulary definition, and that's electronic configuration. So what is this exactly? The definition of this word is the arrangement of electrons of an atom in its ground state into various orbitals around the nucleus of an atom. Sometimes they're called energy shells or just shells or energy levels. I'll be using those different terms interchangeably. So what does this mean? Let's take a look at an example. So let's take a look at an atom of hydrogen. We know that there's a nucleus where the protons and possibly neutrons are hanging out. Now the electrons are going to be moving on the outside of the atom around the nucleus. The electron configuration found in the lower left-hand corner of the element's periodic table here tells us where those electrons are positioned. So hydrogen has only one electron, since it has only one proton. So the Bohr model of this atom can be drawn simply as the nucleus with an electron moving in a circular path around the nucleus, which is this dashed line. Now, the Bohr model for the atom of helium is very similar, except there is an extra electron on the outside of the nucleus because helium has two protons because it has an atomic number of 2. So there's a need for 2 electrons to make this atom neutral, and they're going around and around the nucleus. Now, the Bohr model for an atom of the element lithium is a little different than the previous 2 atoms, and that's because a new energy level is needed to accommodate a third electron. This first orbital is filled with only 2 electrons. It's all filled. It can't accommodate a third one. So the electron configuration describing the first energy level has 2 electrons in it, and then the second energy has 1 electron in it. Now, we can see this on the periodic table also. The first row of the periodic table has hydrogen and helium in it. Okay, and that has only 1 energy level in it. Lithium starts a new row, and therefore a new energy level represented by that new larger circle around the nucleus. And it starts the second energy level with 1 electron in it. Now moving on, we see that beryllium has 2 electrons in the first energy level, and then the second level has 2 electrons as well. Now that second level can fit more electrons than the first level. So let's go to the end of that second row with the element neon. Okay, that's the end of that second row. When we look at neon's configuration, we see that it is 2-8, and so this first electron shell has 2 electrons in it, and then the second energy level has 8 electrons in it. After this, the third shell will begin to fill up. Okay, now let's look at an atom of chromium next, and that's in the 4th energy level. So looking at the position here on the periodic table, we see that there should be 4 levels or electron shells, and that's exactly what we see here. The first shell has 2 electrons in it, the second has 8, the third has 13, and the fourth 1. Now, it's interesting to note that once the third electron shell has 8 electrons in it, as the outermost shell in an atom of argon, so go ahead and look at that on the periodic table. I'm not showing that to you, but you can look at it yourself. So after the outermost shell of the atom of argon has 8 electrons in it, the third one, the 4th level begins to fill up. However, you'll notice that this third shell can begin to fit more than 8 electrons in it, as you can see in this diagram of chromium. The third shell has 13 in it. However, you cannot contain more than 8 electrons until the 4th shell has at least 1 electron in it. So you can take a look at the periodic table, and you'll never find an atom that has more than 8 electrons in its outermost energy level. Okay, so you can go ahead and take a look at it. Now it's time for you to practice. So draw concentric circles to represent energy levels and dots to represent electrons to construct a Bohr model of an atom for each of the elements listed to the right. So draw a Bohr atom for carbon, a Bohr atom for potassium, and a Bohr model of an atom of cobalt. pause this video because I'm going to show you how to do this next. So practice it first. Okay, I'm going to show you the answer to these so you can check yourself. So the Bohr model of atom of carbon has 2 electrons in its first energy shell, and second energy level has 4 electrons in it. If you look at potassium, we've got 4 different energy levels, and we can see the first energy level has 2 electrons in it, the second has 8, the third has 8, and the fourth has 1. This is the atom right after argon, starting to 4th energy shell. And then finally, if we look at cobalt, we've got 2 electrons in the first energy level, 8 in the second, 15 in the third, so that's more than 8, right? And this is a couple down from our atom of chromium that we saw earlier. And there's 2 electrons in the final and 4th energy level or electron shell. And that's all there is to know about the Bohr model of the atom.